Do you have that one game you can vividly remember playing when you were a kid, but no one else has ever heard of it? Well, I do, and for me that's 2003's Whiplash, developed by Crystal Dynamics. It's a 3D platformer where you play as a mute weasel chained to a psychotic rabbit. Is the game a hidden gem, or should it be left forgotten? Let's find out. You play as Spanx the weasel, who is handcuffed to Redmond the rabbit. They get loose from animal testing by a company called Genron. Their goal is to free the other animals and escape the labs. The game is darkly comedic and takes a more funny look on animal testing and evil corporations, which landed it in some controversy here in the UK with the RSPCA, an animal rescue group. They didn't appreciate a satirical look on animal testing, even though the game has an anti-animal cruelty message. That's the setup, so how does the game actually play? You control Spanx, who can perform basic moves like running, jumping, climbing, scurrying, which is sprint, and clinging to rails. Redmond is used against his will as all manner of things, like a weapon as he is thrown into enemies or as a fuse to open doors. Spanx swings Redmond above his head like a helicopter to glide. It's a fun idea for a platformer protagonist. You'll need to use different elements like fire to progress, so Spanx of course sets Redmond on fire all the while Redmond is screaming. It can be quite funny. I can see why the RSPCA might have had a problem with this. You can do lots of horrible things to Redmond with elements, like inflate him with helium so you can fly upwards, or throw him into gears in a machine to get it to break, but he's mostly used in the combat. Which isn't good. It's very button mashy and there is a lot of it. You only have a handful of attacks. You can send Redmond flying forward, you can swing him down overhead, and if you crouch and attack you can perform a sweep attack. You can also use the elements on enemies for different effects, like ice freezes them or fire sets their coats on fire. If you get a lot of hits with Redmond in a row, you will trigger his hyper mode. This is where he will attack really fast automatically. You don't even have to hit enemies, it works on inanimate objects as well. This would be fine if the enemies didn't block so much. Only the human enemies block, the robot enemies normally die in one hit. You'd think if the enemy is blocking your forward attack, you just switch to the overhead attack, which is how it works for the first half of the game. In the latter half, they seem to just block all attacks. What I would do is spam the forward attack and move around them until one hit got through, breaking their block. Then just keep spamming attacks till they are down. They will get back up after a while as they are only knocked out. This led me to running past enemies if I could. You would only be missing out on a few hyper snacks if you don't fight them. These are used in the game's upgrade system. They can be found across the levels, collect so many and you can choose whether to upgrade Spanx's health or Redmond's hyper mode. The game has auto dispense points on by default, and this worked fine for me. You can set it so however many points get sent to health or damage. You can also unlock upgrades by freeing animals and destroying property in the levels. Destructible objects are assigned dollar values. They will stay destroyed, which is neat. You can bankrupt Genron if you cause $6 million worth of damage, which is a great emergent goal. It was very satisfying watching the money counter tick down with each thing I destroyed. It's a little thing but added a lot to the game. Disappointingly, nothing happens when you hit 0. The counter just changes to say a minus. I don't know what I was expecting, to be fair. You get these upgrades at the end of each area. You get to pick between a bunch of hyper snacks, more details to be added to your map like where medkits are, or new moves in combat. The new moves aren't great. The most useful for me was the ability to charge the overhead attack. The game has a life system which felt unnecessary. I had 30 lives to spare by the end. The game itself is quite easy, which is fine because it's aimed at kids. The most difficult parts are the platforming. It's never too hard, it just felt like I pressed the right buttons to jump and glide, but the game didn't register them sometimes. That's the core gameplay, so how are the actual levels? The entire game takes place in one building, so a lot of areas look and feel the same. The building is split up into different sections like genetics, medical, robotics, waste and shipping. They all try to have a different vibe with different colour lighting, unique objects and hazards, but it's not enough to make them feel that different from each other. Each area will have grey walls and computers. The waste area stood out the most because it was the most different, with toxic water and garbage piled up everywhere. There are a lot of corridors with lasers or enemies in them. The levels are a mix of these corridors and big rooms with lots of breakable objects in them, which is fine for pacing. You always know where you have to go, until the game makes you backtrack. The game is mostly linear. You go to each of these areas one by one to complete objectives and fight a boss at the end. I was enjoying the game fine enough. Just before the last area of the game you have to go back to each of the areas to collect a key from a new boss. It's like a victory lap, except it didn't feel like it. First off, there's no fast travel, yay. So you'll have to go through areas again doing the same platforming in the same tedious corridors. There are shortcuts you've unlocked from before, but there are not a lot of these. Most annoyingly are how you open some doors. There is a mini game where you have to throw Redmond into a machine, then you have to press left every time Spanx is pulled forward. It's very simple, but you have to do it a stupid amount. I'm assuming it's there to corrupt load times, which would be fine if you didn't have to do this minigame 3 times in a row in some corridors. Lastly, the map isn't the best. You can press a button to show what room you need to get to, but it shows it all the way zoomed in, so you have to zoom out and try to figure out where you are. Doors and warp pipes are not super clear where they'll end up. It will say pipe to security in the corner, but the map only shows one area at a time, so you'll have to load up that map to see where it comes out. The worst case is in the main hub. The area on the map is just one room. As is where most areas connect back to, it has a lot of doors and pipes. So in the corner it will say door and pipe to every location, but not which specific door or pipe they are. It's a tad annoying. The bosses are also rather annoying. You know how in most games you gotta activate a thing 3 times to finish off a boss. Here you gotta do the same thing like 4 or 5 times. It's a bit ridiculous. Like this one boss you have to hit 4 valves so some goop goes on the floor to distract him. Like I worked out what to do, why do I have to do it so many times? Just give him a lot less health. Every boss is like this. They don't have a very charming design either. Just men in hazmat suits or big robots. Where the game holds up is in its visual and style. The game looks good considering its age. It has a cartoony look and animations are exaggerated, which helps sells the humour, which I found quite funny throughout, even if it's all over the place. There's a lot of slapstick, mostly Spanx hurting Redmond in different ways. There are a lot of fourth wall breaks like the narrator telling you to tell your friends to buy the game, or let's be honest, let them borrow it. Redmond throws out some references that I would have been shocked if any kid got. He calls one boss Roman Polanski, and another time he mentions Willie Nelson. Redmond is actually quite funny. We find out that Spanx hates his mother, and he likes to bring that up every so often. He also got trained to hit a red button, so whenever he sees one he has to press it instinctively. He also falls in love with the nurse character who wants nothing to do with him. There are multiple parts where he and Spanx could escape the building and Redmond is all for it, but of course Spanx forces him to stay. This can actually be seen in the running animation. Redmond gives up trying to keep up and gets dragged across the floor. The dialogue can be quite good at times as well. General will say some wild stuff in order to justify animal testing. Like even though these animals lack work experience, we'll still give them a job. Or look at these animals wandering around penniless and bored. The CEO might be the funniest character. At one point he says, "Do humans go around biting children? Do humans go around making our oceans smell like fish?" Then one of his goons says, "You know you're talking to an animal." It did make me chuckle. There is also a poop with eyes on it. You know, all different types of humour. What's not funny are the amount of bugs I encountered. They were mostly visual, like Redmond floating next to an object he's supposed to be in. Then there are some minor gameplay ones, like the game spawning me over a pit so I would die. Or when you get to an upgrade screen at the end of area, the screen will trigger multiple times, one after each other. And the camera can be a bit difficult, like a lot of platformers at this time. Nothing game breaking, just worth mentioning. To address the RSPCA controversy, they seem unjustified being so upset with Whiplash. Yes, it does make light of the cruelty of animal testing, but to be fair to the game, it does show the animals being tested in horrible, if over the top ways. The game is aimed at young children, so I wouldn't expect to see realistic depictions of animal testing. The game uses slapstick because that's what keeps kids engaged, not to downplay the reality of animal testing. The game is clearly anti-animal testing, so the controversy seems a bit ridiculous. Ultimately, I'm glad I finally finished Whiplash after all these years. I had a fine enough time with it, but I can see why it didn't sell well. It's charming and offbeat, but I don't think I'd recommend it unless you're a die-hard platformer fan. Time to rank it. I'm feeling number 47. Whiplash is way less boring than Avatar thanks to the humour and gameplay, so it's above that. But I can't put it above Griefhold. That game had a more interesting setting and a good story compared to Whiplash, even though I got bored with both by the end. So yeah, new number 47. I'm now going to try and remember what that film Miles Tellers and J.K. Simmons is called.